Imagine this. You wake up in the morning and almost without thinking, you reach up for your phone. Before you've even sat up, the screen lights up with notifications. There's a message from your boss asking for something. There's a message from your kids telling you something. There's an email that needs your attention. Oh my God, your mind switches on instantly. Sometimes your mind is switched on even before you've picked up your phone because you know those messages are going to be there. And you tell yourself that this is life, this is how life works, this is your life today. Researchers at the University of California found that the average person switches tasks more than 300 times a day, and each interruption increases stress hormones in the brain. Another study from the University of Pittsburgh showed that constant noise, especially digital noise, reduces our ability to feel calm, even when we want to. It's not surprising then that most people say the moments when they feel most connected to themselves are the quiet ones. You might have noticed that in those moments, things feel clearer. Nothing overly dramatic happens, but you just for perhaps 1 second feel rejuvenated. You feel a little alive. That's the kind of silence we're talking about today. Not the dramatic, faraway kind, but the human kind. The kind that can change the way we see the world if we learn how to listen for it. This is Anshu Bahanda, and today on Wellness Curated, we're talking about when silence speaks, the wisdom of stillness. This is a gentle but powerful journey into what silence can teach us about resilience and living with depth in this crazy, noisy world. Welcome back to the Wellness Algorithm, where we explore the tools, practices, and ideas that help us live with more awareness and more intention. Wellness is not fixed. It evolves as we do, and at every stage of our lives, it asks us to listen more deeply to ourselves. Today, we're going to be talking about silence, not the absence of noise, but the presence of attention. In a world where our minds are constantly pulled in every direction, silence offers a rare chance to pause and notice what is actually happening within us. It helps us think more clearly, feel more grounded, and reconnect with parts of ourselves that often get drowned out by the pace of our daily lives. Joining me today is someone who's lived in silence in a way that very few people in the planet have. Erling Kagge is a Norwegian explorer and businessman, and he's the first person in history to reach the North Pole, the South Pole, and the summit of the Mount Everest on foot. He reached the South Pole alone. And he's also the author of several books, including Silence, which has been published in 42 languages and continues to inspire people all around the world. Before we begin, a small request. Please subscribe to the podcast. It's free and it supports our mission to bring you meaningful, well-researched, science-backed conversations. And if today's episode resonates, share it with someone who might need this information. Thank you, Erling, for being here with us today. I'm going to jump right into questions. So, you've explored some of the most remote places on Earth, as I said in my introduction. Can you remember the first time on your journey when you actually understood the impact of silence and realized that it was more than just the absence of sound?
Yes, it was silence was growing on me. I spent a lot of time in nature, and I once walked alone to the South Pole for 50 days and nights without a radio in total solitude. What was interesting was that to begin with, it was a bit uncomfortable. It was absolutely silent around me, but soon also became silent inside me. I kind of started to discover my own inner silence. So that expedition taught me a great lesson on the importance of having silence in our lives, and also that this inner silence is about who you are, and everything else, all kinds of noise from, of course, sounds, but also from a telephone buzzing, a car passing, a radio running, whatever, is all about running away from who you are. So, yes, and then some years later, I had three teenage daughters, and my life was all about noise. So then I could really tell the difference, and I had a busy job. And that's when I sat down to really try to understand what silence is.
Right. And tell me something. You're talking about having three teenage daughters. So, for a lot of us, our lives are filled with commitments, with notification, with people pulling us in every direction, and with responsibilities pulling us in every direction. So, in the context of the life you've led, the things you've been through, and the silence that you have experienced, how would you advise us to create boundaries that protect these moments of quiet without us disconnecting from our responsibilities?
I believe it's way easier than most people seems to believe. Obviously, the easiest thing in life is noise, is to live through noise, is to live through your screen, to believe that you can understand the world fully, and you're getting to know yourself much better by looking into a screen. So that's the easiest. So of course, silence is also about making life a little bit more difficult. And I strongly believe, not everyone, but certainly if you're born in Norway like I am, that you actively have to make your life a little bit more difficult if you're
Mhm.
going to be meaningful. And practical wise, I should not give too many advices. That's not why I wrote about silence and been thinking about silence. It's about, but then again, I think, to leave your phone a couple hours before you go to bed, put it on airline mode, uh, don't turn it on right away when you wake up in the morning, and make sure that your kids are doing the same. I think that's a really, really good beginning. And also just keep in mind that some of the brightest people in the world are, working day and night to make you a slave of all this technology, and make you the product of all this technology. So it's a matter about being the center in your own life, or if you're going to live through everyone else. And of course, unfortunately, many people like to be someone else, but I strongly recommend everyone to try to get to know themselves better.
Thank you. So that's advice that, a lot of people also give, but it's very valuable advice that put your phone off a couple of hours before going to bed. Don't look at it first thing in the morning. But I want to ask you about a deeper kind of silence now, the one that you were talking about when you went to the South Pole, where you said it wasn't just there was silence all around you as well. And that's what forced you to face or made you face your own thoughts and caused the silence inside you. Now, how do we tell someone who feels uneasy or restless when things get quiet? I mean, I know a lot of people who'll walk into a room and put on the television or put on a radio or something because they're uncomfortable with quiet.
Most people are uncomfortable with quiet.
Mhm.
And that's not a new phenomenon. Like this European philosopher, Blaise Pascal, he wrote in the 1640s that a man is not able to sit alone by himself doing nothing and instead of doing nothing, he starts to do something, and that's the
Mhm.
beginning of all his problems. So this is like, this is something that has been problematic throughout the ages. But of course, today, with that we're all connected at all times,
Mhm.
it's even more difficult. So I think we have to accept that life is supposed to be difficult. This whole idea that it should be comfortable at all time, that you should not have any or as little resistance in life as possible, and that again, like, just pursuit of happiness throughout the day. all this to me is, are just deep misunderstandings in life. And that's also one of the reasons why people claim to be unhappy, lonely, sad, and even depressed. So the alternative is to be a little bit rougher on yourself. Go on a walk without bringing your phone. Don't turn on all those screens you're mentioning that we all have the instinct to do, but stop and try to listen to your own inner silence. And then, of course, most people will say, but it's uncomfortable. Yeah, it is uncomfortable because this inner silence is about who you are. It's about getting to know yourself. But uh, it's not about living a more egocentric life to take a pause from everything else and listen to yourself. To me, as I learned to the South Pole, but also as a father of teenage daughters and also as a businessman, I learned that this silence is not about turning your back to the world. It's the opposite. It's about seeing the world from a different perspective. It's about understanding yourself. And it's very much about loving life.
So you made a very interesting comment. In fact, you said that twice, and that's very unusual in today's day and age, though a lot of philosophies believe that. And you said life is meant to be difficult. It's not all meant to be easy. I want you to explain that to our audience.
I think, today in the major parts of the world, had this idea that happiness, you can chase happiness, but of course, if you chase happiness throughout the day and throughout your life, you will never achieve much happiness. And somehow happiness has to come following you, has to chase you. It's the other way around. And if you're going to live a content life, or feel content, it's about getting to know yourself. It's about fulfilling your own potentials in life. And all these are not my ideas. This is kind of ideas that have survived for thousands of years. And I think every idea that has survived for more than 1,000 years, we should take seriously. But to achieve any of this, you need to explore your own inner silence. Doesn't matter if you're 5 years old or 85 years old, that's the only way. And it is difficult. So that's why I say you have to kind of actively make your life more difficult than it has to be. I believe that's my experience. People may differ. That's totally okay. But I also believe that you need to follow your own path, like in Sanskrit, svamarga, and that again is to listen to yourself. And also, the good thing, if you get to know yourself better, it's also easier to appreciate other people, and of course, it's also way easier to have a good life.
Thank you, Erling. That's a very, very spiritual view that you have. I mean, you could be talking straight out of a Vedanta book. So
Mhm.
thank you for that. But I want to ask you something about creating more calm in people's lives. So you did give us one practical step, but can you give us some small practical steps which can help people's homes and offices feel quieter or mentally calmer?
I think to me the best is to spend some time in nature. I
Mhm.
think the biggest mistake we're doing in the world today is not to listen to nature more than we do. Like the Earth is 4.5 billion years old, and this whole idea that we don't need nature, that we are conquered nature, that we're separate from nature, that's one source of so many of the problems we have in the world today. And of course, it's way
I
easier.
agree. I 100% agree.
Uh,
Sorry, go ahead.
but of course, if you live in the city center of New Delhi or London, for that matter, nature is far away. So, but there's still nature there too. I mean, there's many trees in Delhi, and there's great squares in London. But then I think this inner silence I'm talking about. It's there inside you at any time, waiting for you to discover it and try to experience it. And you can do it when you walk up the stairs and taking the lift. You can do it when you have a shower in the morning. You can do it when you're cooking. Maybe even better if you do the dishes, because no one is going to disturb you. So there's always possibilities. This whole idea that it's not possible for me, no, that's not correct, because nothing in the world, nothing in life is 100% or 0%. It's always degrees between 0.1 and 99.9. And of course, when I had 3 teenage daughters, it was much more difficult to explore my inner silence. But still, it was possible. I even sometimes to my office, I walked the stairs, but I walked backwards the stairs,
Oh,
because then
wow.
then you really have to focus on the moment. You don't
Yeah.
think about the future. You don't think about the past. You're not thinking about your phone. You just have to focus about being there and then, and putting your steps right. And that makes you be very much present in the moment. And that's a good way to start your working day. And of course, you try to do it when no one is watching, because then you have to explain to them why you're doing it. But my point is, it's always possible to explore your own silence.
So tell me something. Have you ever found yourself? I read your book, both your books, in fact. I read Silence and I read Walking. Now tell me, have you ever felt that you're in a room full of people, in a very noisy room, but you could tune into your inner silence? Do you feel that often? And how can we help people do that?
When I'm in a room with many people, sometimes I feel lonely, because, if you don't know so many of the people, you're standing there by yourself. Felt much more loneliness in in, in my life with many people than being by myself.
Mhm.
Um, but maybe, in a room with many people, maybe you should try to be social, not to listen to inner silence all the time, because we're also born as Homo sapiens to be a social being. So I think it's really important to socialize, to have friends, to interact with other people. But then again, I find it way more easy to be social when I can also relate to my inner silence.
So now tell me, you're talking about us being social. Now, very often we feel like connection and being social comes from talking. Wh- So, what would you advise people about the role of silence in relationships and communication and being truly present with another human being? Does silence play a role in all this?
Yes, and I should be careful not giving too many advices, but I can tell about my own experiences, and also, from people I talk to, their experiences. And in terms of relationships, I think, my experience is, if we need to put words on everything we feel, everything we want, everything we like to ask the other person about, I think then then it's a tough luck to make the relationship survive. I think,
Mhm.
when you get really close to your partner, you should be able to communicate, not all the time, of course, but sometimes in silence. There should always be, you know, at least for me, um, if I have a girlfriend and
Mhm.
she doesn't understand at any time unless I have explained her in words what I want or what I feel and what I'm thinking about, I think we're in deep shit.
Okay. And also, you talked about loneliness. So tell me, what is the difference that you see between silence and loneliness? What is the difference in experiencing the two? Because very often people mix the two up. They feel in quiet moments or silent moments, they start beginning to feel lonely.
Yeah, it's easy to feel lonely. It's easy to feel bored. It's easy to kind of, feel very restless
Mhm.
when you're exploring your own silence. And, that's why most people, or so many people, are not kind of trying to explore their own silence, because it's not an easy ride. And that's why people prefer to run away from the ones they are, because that's the easiest in life, to live through other people. So, I don't really have a remedy for it. You just have to accept that, like, for half a minute, 5 minutes, maybe for an hour, it is uncomfortable. You feel lonely in this silence, and also, you can also feel bored.
Mhm.
And I remember when I was a kid, my mother told me I was bored. At that time, I was bored because nothing is happening. Today, people are bored because they have too many options, too many things happening, but it's kind of the same feeling. And my mother said to me, Erling, it's healthy to be bored every now and then. And I
Yes.
felt that was absolutely stupid comment. But of course, today, 55, 57 years later, I can see that my mother was right.
Mm. Yeah. But tell me, so when life feels noisy or stressful, as it's getting for so many people around the world, are there signs that tell us that we need a pause or silence? And how can people recognize these signals? Because there's way too many people reaching burnout in the world today, and there's way too many people going into anxiety and depression. So my question is, at what stage can you tell that life is getting too noisy or stressful? What signs, rather, should we look at that we need to just break away and we need silence and we need a pause? Yeah.
I think if you wonder about it, there's probably too much noise in your life. It's too much noise. And so I think, it's so if you ask yourself this question, you probably have too much noise in your life.
So, on that note, I think there's probably 60%, 50 to 60% of the Earth's population who have too much stress, too much noise in their lives today. I mean, whether it's been caused by wars, whether it's been caused just by lifestyle, whether it's been caused by technology, what can they do? What would you advise that they do?
It's a good question in the sense that I think for many people, they don't have a choice. As you said, if you're part of a war, I mean, I'm not the one to give you any advice, because it's touch wood. It's something I don't know much about. So, but then again, on the other side, I know quite a lot about life in many, many parts of the world. Then I think, you need to understand that silence is something. Like I asked my teenage daughters, they're not teenagers anymore. I asked them about silence, and they said to me, "But silence is nothing." Which again, like, in philosophy, the first year in college, if you study philosophy, you will learn that nothing comes from nothing. And that's also probably one of the reasons why philosophers write so little about silence. But of course, silence is something, and silence speaks to you, and you can have a communication, not kind of proper dialogue with words, but you can still have an exchange of thoughts and ideas with silence. And with silence, you become more creative, and you're getting to know yourself, as I said, but also believe you become a better human being.
Hmm. So tell me something. I mean, you said we were talking about technology. We started this conversation about with talking about having no digital noise, say 2 hours before we sleep and just after we wake up. Is there any other thing you can recommend, realistic steps that people can take to reduce digital noise? For example, one of my Jewish friends said to me that during Sabbath, he doesn't go on his phone, and that really helps him. So, is there any advice you can give to people out there? Because one of the biggest issues is digital noise, isn't it?
Absolutely, but it's. I think it's difficult to give advice. I think most people know what it takes. It's not complicated. It's You just have to be willing to do that tiny sacrifice to get to know yourself better, and to relax and have this pauses from the noise, and to allow each moment to be big enough, not living through the past, not living through the future, being there and then. So I think, it's people is kind of, it's easy to say that, in major parts of the world, we have sufficient of material goods. The only thing we lack is enough time. To
Mm-hmm.
me, that doesn't make sense. We have enough time. The problem is that we're wasting our time. So life is long if you don't waste your time. But of course, if you tend to do the same things every day, checking your phone, doing this, doing that, checking your phones, looking into a screen, trying to understand what's going in your own life and other people's life just by sitting in a chair, looking down, um, then life will feel really short. And it is short because both time and space will be narrowing in. But if you live a different life and look up into the sky, try to see the stars, go walking, thinking, read some great novels, listen to some really good music, then time expands and also space expands and life feels pretty long.
Lovely. Now, tell me, when you walked to the North Pole alone, the South Pole, the
The
summit
North
alone.
Pole, no, North Pole with a friend, with Børge Osland, but the
Also,
South Pole,
North Pole was with a friend. I thought I was alone as well. So was
no.
the South Pole and the Everest summit alone?
Everest with other people, but the South Pole for sure by myself. Yeah.
So did you ever get to a stage where you felt like, I can't deal, I need to hear some noise. I can't deal with this anymore?
No, to begin with, and I experienced this several times because when I've been sailing the oceans and spending time in the forest, in the mountains, and then Antarctica by myself. To begin with, you have that feeling, that uncomfortable feeling, but then you calm down, you accept reality, and take it as a stoic. This is this is what how this is how I have to relate to reality, and from then on, it's become an expedition into yourself, and that's a really really great journey. It is like Emily Dickinson, the poet. She wrote that your brain is wider than the universe, and that's true.
Lovely. And tell me, your book Silence especially has resonated with people around the world. Why do you think people are getting so drawn to the idea of silence and stillness at this point in the development of history, so to say?
Because people are smart, people are clever, they have experiences, it's a sure sign of intelligence that you learn from your own experiences, and people see that their lives are lacking something really really important, and that's about who they are and what are the meanings of life and why am I here and where am I heading. So then you see many people see, I have to relate to silence. This life I'm living in many ways is a good life, but parts of my life still is being wasted.
And if you were to give people some advice from your experience, which takes them beyond putting their digital noise off before and after sleep, what do you think can make a bigger difference to their lives? What should they be doing?
I think, time allowing, and depending on where you live in the world, spend more time in nature, listen to Mother Earth, as I mentioned. I'm not saying everyone can do it, and I'm saying that many people have bigger problems that they're in life that are not related to silence. I just talk in kind of a general overview,
Mhm.
that most people are underestimating themselves, underestimating their possibilities in life, and also underestimating their kind of chances for actually spend a little time in nature.
Mhm.
We are a part of nature, and
Yeah, we are nature. That I 100% agree with. And we think we've conquered it, like you said, but we are part of nature. And when nature decides to teach us a lesson, it really does, doesn't it?
every time. Yeah,
And we have no power.
no, no, compared to nature, we kind of, and that's why I think that we have to great degree separated ourselves from nature. That's a source for problems in the world on a individual level and on the global level. Individual level, that people, as I said earlier on, that people claim to be sad, lonely, depressed, etc. And of course, it's easy to feel sad, lonely, and depressed if you don't relate to nature at all. And even worse, if you just mostly relate to looking into a screen. So I'm not anti-technology. I'm just saying, like, it has gone too far. And on a global scale, with climate change, it's really difficult to relate to climate change too, if you believe you don't need nature or that you don't relate to nature. So this problem is both very deep and very wide.
So I have a question for you on that. You know how technology is hugely helpful, it's changed the way we live. But there is a but every time someone asks me why would I not wear any of the wearables, I don't know. I just don't get used to having it on my body. I can't wear an Aura ring. It just doesn't feel right to me to have more technology than I already do because I already have a phone on me all the time or a lot of the time. So, what is your opinion on wearables? And secondly, what is your opinion on people talking about chipping the brain?
The second question, I think, it's really difficult one because, obviously we have to define, all the time what it is to be a human being, what the Homo sapiens, and of course, what to be as Homo sapiens has changed throughout the times. So now it will change again. But on that, uh, on that one, it's so complicated, so I can't give you a good, quick answer. It's about being aware of your own limitations. But on the other hand, like, to wear these rings, these measurements on the shoulder, do all this, to me, that's a mistake. First, because there's so many things you can't measure. Second, all these things they claim to measure so properly, even if you stay at a top-notch hospital somewhere, they have difficulties, measuring your sleep, measuring different things. And the whole idea that you can do it by having a ring on the finger, I don't believe in. So I'm not saying it's all bullshit, but I think, I think we're doing a mistake because we need to be, we need to teach ourselves to listen to our body in a natural way. And if you don't, I had this girlfriend who, measuring everything by numbers all the time. And she said, you have to believe the data. You have to believe the numbers. And I said, like, fair enough. But when the numbers are wrong, I can't really, or like it's hard to prove, I can't really see any reason to believe in them. So anyway, I believe also in silence, you should just listen to your body. If something is aching, you should change. If your hip is aching, you should move in a different way. You should stop doing something, start doing something else, etc., etc., etc. So, and in terms of sleep, you don't really need a watch to tell you that you don't sleep so well if you have been drinking a bottle of red wine, but
Yeah,
maybe sleep better after 2 glasses. But this is something you have to understand yourself. I believe that's my experience. And I think, your kids, grandchildren will laugh their heads off if you tell them that, I had this ring on me and that
yeah.
kind of measured so and so and so. Yeah.
That's interesting. That's interesting because there's people who take data for everything. They live on data, and so it's interesting. Yeah, yours is the other point of view. So that listen to yourself and you'll get the answers.
Yeah. Most of the answers. Yeah. At least I think more answers than you get from that ring.
So Erling, now we're going to do this fun rapid fire round. It's called truth in one word. So I'm going to give you a word and you tell me the first truth or idea that comes to your mind. Stillness.
Meaning of life. Meanings of life.
Courage.
Doing something despite is a huge risk.
Lovely. Attention.
Being present in your own life.
Wonder.
Let wonder be the engine in your life.
Home.
That's that's where I live when I go out traveling or hiking or do whatever I do. And
Wonderful.
unfortunately, where I return to.
Okay, lovely. Thank you so much, Erling. That was such a thoughtful and grounding conversation.
Thank you for inviting.
That was such an incredible, amazing, magnificent conversation with Erling Kagge. Today's discussion reminded us that silence is not just something far away or unreachable. It's something we can create in small, everyday moments, in little pockets, if we create the space for it in our lives. Understanding what silence can offer, learning how to make room for it, and realizing that quiet can support us rather than overwhelm us gives us a new way to approach our well being. If something in this episode helped you slow down, rethink your relationship with noise, or consider how silence might fit into your own life, please share it with someone who may need a moment of calm today. And don't forget to subscribe, it's free and it helps us continue creating a community that learns, supports, and grows together. I'm Anshu Bahanda. Take care of yourself, be gentle with your pace, and remember that stillness is not the absence of life, it's the space that helps you live it more fully and more presently. Thank you.